And for more on the ISIL hostage negotiations, I'm joined from Boston by Max Abrahms. He's a counterterrorism strategy analyst and a political science professor at Northeastern University. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure.
Max, it seems we're watching these hostage negotiations take place publicly. You have Jordan saying, yes, we'll swap their prisoners. But what does it say about the current situation that ISIL is actually keeping these men alive?
Well, honestly, we're not sure who's alive and who's not at this point. I don't know for a fact that the Jordanian pilot is alive. Amman has said, yes, we want to deal with you, Islamic State, and we're prepared to release this very high-profile terrorist in the shape of Rishawi, and yet all Islamic State had to do is show that this Jordanian pilot is alive and to release him in exchange for Rishawi, but Islamic State has not done that, and that raises real questions. Why hasn't Islamic State done that? Maybe this person is dead. Or maybe Islamic State didn't actually think that Jordan would comply and go along with this. The first demand that Islamic State made was for $200 million to be delivered in 72 hours. And that shows to me that perhaps Islamic State isn't negotiating in good faith. And so the same may be true about the Jordanian pilot. At this point, we really don't know.
By Jordan appearing to deal with ISIL, does it make the terror group look stronger, perhaps, that they're actually contemplating working something out?
There's no doubt Islamic State holds the cards in this. I mean, almost no matter how this unfolds, Islamic State benefits. If a trade goes through and Rishawi is released, then Islamic State can declare victory. This is a very important symbol linking back Islamic State to its origin in al-Qaeda in Iraq. Conversely, if no deal goes through, then Islamic State can simply kill off the remaining hostages and say, look, ultimately, we hold the cards, we negotiate only if we want. And so almost regardless of how this plays out, Islamic State will declare victory.
If a swap takes place and a deal is made, do you think we'll see even more kidnappings or hostage situations with ISIL increasing demands? Could this set a precedent to see more of the same?
Well, it wouldn't set a precedent in the sense that the reality is that governments do often trade with terrorist groups, even for prisoners. Israel has done this with the Palestinians. The Turks did this with Islamic State. The U.S., frankly, traded with the Taliban, getting back Bergdahl in exchange for the so-called Taliban 5 or the Gitmo 5. And so this wouldn't be unprecedented territory, but this would be a very high-profile victory for Islamic State, which would further incentivize more hostage-taking. And then the group could continue demanding either money or more prisoners. And so, yes, I do think that both Japan and Jordan need to be cognizant that, yes, although they want to safeguard their own citizens by negotiating with Islamic State, it only reinforces their desire to seize more hostages, which could eventually be directed against those two countries as well as other countries in the world as well.
And Max, let's look at this internationally. We heard in our report a short time ago that Washington isn't really weighing in on what's taking place. Jordan and Japan, both allies of the United States. What do you think the dynamics will be if something does go through here? Does this change how these countries treat each other or no?
I mean, there's a distinction that should be made between governments' rhetorical policies, which are almost all identical. We do not negotiate with terrorists. And then there's the behind the scenes. And among countries, there's variation about whether countries are more or less likely to negotiate with terrorists. The United States is kind of on the extreme end of those countries that really, in practice, don't like to negotiate with terrorists, But in fact, we actually do, and Bergdahl is the most well-known, relevant, recent example. And so given the hypocrisy which is found throughout the world, including in Washington, there's no chance that there's going to be a lot of fallout in the bilateral relationship between the United States and Jordan or the United States and Japan. Those allies are just too critical and too important to us. And this issue is too tricky, and our hands are too dirty on this issue for there to really be bilateral fallout.
All right, Max Abrahms, good reminder there. Thanks for your time and your insight.